But welcome to our service here this morning, which as you see is called When the Student is Ready, the Teacher Appears. I'm going to ask Judith to light our chalice here for us while I say some words. We seekers are on a quest to discover truth and meaning. Sometimes we think we've found it, wrapped up, glimmering with newness, straight off the intellectual assembly line. All the answers right here for us, and others if they'd only listen. But truth has a way of coming in disguise, sometimes wearing rags and sometimes finery, but so often cloaked from our immediate sight. And sometimes that which we have rejected, that which we have let go of or decided was only for others but not us, can be our teacher. Let our time of worship be an acknowledgement of the never-ending journey toward truth and meaning, and our appreciation of those we learn from along the way. Words by Jason Cook. I thought that those words were particularly appropriate today because the topic of my service was mostly inspired by Bill Stdent, from whom many of us here and in the other churches in Scotland learnt much. I hope he was listening when I said from whom many of us learnt, rather than whom many of us learnt from. It would have pleased him. And once a teacher, always a teacher. Whatever he spoke about, you were always left with something to think about. So now we're going to sing our first hymn, which is coming up on the screen hopefully, but if you like the books, it is number 290 in the green book called Unfolding Life. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And this has been variously attributed to the Buddha, to Lao Tzu, and to the co-founder of Theosophism, Helena Blavatsky. The fact is that no one knows for certain who it was that said it. So I think in the end that it isn't really important. All the saying means is that at the time that is appropriate to us, we are taught lessons that are important for our own lives by all sorts of different people, old and young, human and non-human. This morning I'm just going to look at a few of them. First, I have a reading showing what we can learn from animals. In fact, I've got two short readings. They're by American writers, Lauren Isley and Sue Monk Kidd. I once received an unexpected lesson from a spider. It happened far away on a rainy morning in the west. I had come up a long gulch looking for fossils, and there, just at eye level, lurked a huge yellow and black orb spider, whose web was moored to the tall spears of buffalo grass at the edge of the arroyo. It was her universe, and her senses did not extend beyond the lines and spokes of the great wheel she inhabited. Her extended claws could feel every vibration throughout that delicate structure. She knew the tug of the wind, the fall of a raindrop, the flutter of a trapped moth's wing. Down one spoke of the web ran a stout ribbon of gossamer on which she could hurry out to investigate her prey. Curious, I took a pencil from my pocket and touched a strand of the web. Immediately there was a response. The web, plucked by its menacing occupant, began to vibrate until it was a blur. Anything that had brushed claw or wing against that amazing snare would be thoroughly entrapped. As the vibrations slowed, I could see the owner fingering her guidelines for signs of struggle. A pencil point was an intrusion into this universe for which no precedent existed. Spider was circumscribed by spider ideas. Its universe was spider universe. All outside was irrational, extraneous, at best raw material for spider. As I proceeded on my way along the gully, like a vast, impossible shadow, I realized that in the world of spider, I did not exist. That's by Lauren Isley. This one's by Sue Monk Kidd. One afternoon, as the children watched television and I folded laundry, we heard a terrible thud against the patio door. I turned in time to see blue wings falling to the ground. A bird had flown into the glass. None of us said a word. We looked at one another and crept to the door. The children followed me outside. I half expected the bird to be dead, but she wasn't. She was stunned, and her right wing was a little lopsided, but it didn't look broken. The bird sat perfectly still, her eyes tiny and afraid. She looked so fragile and alone that I sat down beside her. I reached out my little finger and brushed her wing. A voice came from behind me. "Why doesn't it fly off, Mama?" "She's hurt," I said. "She just needs to be still." We watched her. We watched her stillness. Finally, the children wandered back to the TV. But I couldn't leave her. I sat beside her, unable to resist the feeling that we shared something, just the two of us. The wounds and brokenness of life, crumpled wings, a collision with something harsh and real. I felt like crying for her, for myself, and for every broken thing in the world. That moment taught me that while the postures of stillness within the cocoon are frequently an individual experience, we also need to share our stillness. The bird taught me anew that we're all in this together, that we need to sit in one another's stillness and take up corporate postures of prayer. How wonderful it is when we can be honest and free enough to say to one another, "I need you to wait with me," or "Would you like me to wait with you?" I studied the bird, deeply impressed that she seemed to know instinctively that in stillness is healing. I had been learning that too. learning that stillness can be prayer that transforms us. How much more concentrated our stillness becomes when it's shared. The door opened again. Is she finished being still yet? No, not yet, I said, knowing I was talking as much about myself as the bird. We went on waiting together. 20 minutes, 30, 50. Finally, she was finished being still. She cocked her head to one side, lifted her wings, and flew. The sight of her flying made me catch my breath. From the corner of my eye, I saw her shadow move along the ground and cross over me. Grace is everywhere, I thought. But I picked myself up and went back to folding laundry. Another hymn now, it's called The Depths of Inner Space, number 40 in the Green Book. In Unitarianism, teachers abound, and when students are ready to hear, there's no one better than Bill Darlison, the retired minister of Dublin Unitarians, and another former Catholic, incidentally. This is an extract from one of his Easter sermons. The person on the cross is you. It is I. It is every man and every woman. Crucifixion is not just an archaic and barbaric punishment for a few unfortunate lawbreakers. It is a condition of life. Crucifixion is the perfect metaphor for the human situation because, unlike most types of execution, it delivers a slow, lingering, painful death. What's more, it takes place for all of us on Golgotha, Calvary, the place of the skull, which is itself an image of life stripped down to its skeletal essentials. We are all poised in pain on the cross of life. None escapes, and all attempts to insulate ourselves from life's pains are fruitless. Even the rich and famous, even the super talented and super beautiful, even the spiritually advanced, suffer the pains of loss, vulnerability, and mortality. And just like Jesus, each of us is crucified between two thieves, one on the right and one on the left. The Gospel text may not tell us their names, and the original story as found in Mark's Gospel doesn't tell us that one of them repented. But the Gospels are clear about their position, and it specifies that they are thieves, Not just any old criminals, but two bandits, men who steal with violence. What do they steal? They steal our life. They are the past and the future, the twin thieves of everyone's life. The past is on the left, the future on the right. The past consumes us with regret, remorse, revenge, nostalgia, habit. The future eats away at our life with anxiety, uncertainty, procrastination, and fear. Life is what happens when you're making plans, said John Lennon, not originally, I might add, but memorably enough. Life is what happens while you are regretting the past and afraid of the future. What then is the transformed life? Jesus told the repentant thief, "Today, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." We enter into the life of promise today, now. It's now or never. By destroying or transforming those twin thieves of our lives, we enter into a whole new way of being. Resurrected life, when the tomb which held us fast is broken open, and we discover a new relationship with life and a new understanding of its pains. This is the consistent message of the world's spiritual traditions. This is the perennial philosophy. This is what Easter means. The message of Easter is not that once upon a time a single individual's death paid the price of sin, and he was rewarded by having his corpse reanimated. It is rather that every man and every woman can and must wake up from the unlived life and save the world from the corrosive effects of sleep. The story of the literal crucifixion and literal resurrection from physical death of a single human being is biologically impossible, historically implausible, and in the way that it is often presented, it is morally questionable. But the story of our own resurrection from spiritual death, while we are still alive, is the most important and liberating message we will ever hear. Very strong stuff, and probably a unique message too, like so many that Bill has given us over the years. He looks at things in quite a different way, and that's one of the unique qualities of Unitarianism. You're allowed to do that. I find it very refreshing, and it's not always in deep subjects we find it. Last spring, for instance, Judith spoke to us about dandelions. She maybe doesn't remember, but she did. Those perennial and persistent nuisances that we're always trying to banish from our lawns. I don't remember now exactly what she did tell us about them, but I do know that it made me go and look a little more closely at a dandelion flower, and I realised what an attractive flower it is, both in colour and form. So I thought it might be a good idea to look at a dandelion, it's only a very small dandelion, while we listen to a piece of music by Ola J-Lo, a young Norwegian composer. The piece is called Brown, appropriately for a flower, and the petals of the dandelion could represent all the people whose teaching, in whatever way, has helped us on life's journey. seen many tightly packed petals and the resulting clouds of seeds after the flowers die. The dandelion would seem to me to be the ideal symbol to use as an illustration of how to spread influence widely. Yet I can't ever remember anyone using it in that way. The ways of realising what we need to learn are always very individual and need to be presented in many different ways and at different times to all of us. In the Christian Gospels, we are often told that Jesus would say to the people listening to him, "He that has ears to hear, let him hear." And that was a saying that really didn't make an awful lot of sense to me when I was younger. But now it seems to me that all he was really telling people was, if you understand what I'm telling you just now, good for you, with the implication that there will be different explanations later on for those who didn't. And that makes perfect sense to those of us who tend to believe in coincidence, or to give it its fancier name, synchronicity. Einstein is said to have believed very strongly in synchronicity, which is probably a bit unusual for a scientist. However, films like The Secret are beginning to make some impact on the world of neuroscience, and there are scientists who are willing to take the value of positive thinking more seriously and to encourage the use of affirmations and mindful meditation of one sort and another to improve our long-term mental health, which suffered rather badly during the days of COVID and lockdown. For me, it's only in the last 6 or 7 years maybe that I finally started to believe that perhaps there may be some purpose to the apparently random happenings in my life. I've certainly noticed there seems to be a procession of responses, mostly in written form, to various questions I may have asked or developments in how I see things. For me, it comes in written form most often because I've always been a words person, so I understand them a little more easily. Occasionally, though, I may find the answer to the question maybe a person, as was the case when Gary appeared and has helped us out such a lot with both services and with improving our technological competence from 0 to about 2. I subscribe to a daily sort of motivational newsletter on the internet, and I find that very much more often than not that the subject is directly concerned with something that I'm wrestling with on that particular day. You can still call it coincidence if you like, but for me there are just too many coincidences happening all the time. Earlier on this year I read a book that gave me a completely different take on the story of the crucifixion of Jesus. I've heard the usual story read in church so often, year by year, that I could probably have recited it word for word. It is a shocking story, horrid, but somehow the constant repetition blunts any feeling of revulsion, and it becomes just part of the story told from a Christian point of view. But the book I read was by the lady whose reading I read earlier, Sue Monk Kidd. She's a feminist theologian, and the book is called The Book of Longings. It was the story of a woman who was the wife of Jesus. Now, it's totally imaginary, as you can imagine, pure fiction. But in actual fact, most Jewish rabbis are married men, and in a way, therefore, he really is more likely to have been married than not. The story of the crucifixion is told as if through the wife's eyes, and the impact was actually quite shattering. I found that I read it once, the passage, and I just couldn't read it again. We read it in the book group, and the members were fairly evenly divided between those who were, like me, quite moved by it, and those who were just not happy about looking at the account in any other way than appears in the Gospels. Personally, I thought that it taught those of us who were able to accept the possibility of a married Jesus a great deal about the whole episode. Perhaps it helped the more conservative members too. I don't actually know, I didn't ask. My final piece of teaching this morning comes from a Sunday Times poetry writer called Donna Ashworth, about whom I know nothing, and I'm ashamed to say I haven't investigated to find out much more about her, but it is a very encouraging and uplifting note to finish on, I think. She says, if every single person who has liked you in your lifetime were to light up on a map, it would create the most glitteringly beautiful network you could imagine. Throw in the strangers you've been kind to, the people you've made laugh or inspired along the way, and that star-bright network of you will be an impressive sight to behold. You are so much more than you think you are. You have done so much more than you realize. You're trailing a bright pathway that you don't even know about. What a thing. What a thing indeed. And we'll continue the inspiring mood with our last hymn, which I think is one of our favourites. Well, it's one of my favourites from the Purple Book. I like it, and I have two left feet apparently, according to my DNA. It's called Let It Be a Dance We Do. Blessing by Richard S. Gilbert. As we leave the community of the Spirit, may we remember the difficult lessons that each day offers more things than we can do. May we do what needs to be done, postpone what does not, and be at peace with what we can be and do. Therefore, may we learn to separate that which matters most and that which matters least of all. Amen.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Thank you.